Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. You know, February the 22nd, there's that colossal card from Riyadh. You know, massively stacked card. One of the most impressive cards probably for about 30 years. A lot of people are calling it the greatest card ever. I mean, it's in the argument, yeah. And it's headlined by Bivol versus Beterbiev, the rematch. And then you've got some terrific cards on the undercard, if you can call it an undercard. I mean, every one of these fights could be, you know, a sort of standalone headliner in its own right. But anyway, I'm not really here to talk about that, but I am here to mention that there's another fight that's not on that card that you should pay attention to, that's also on February the 22nd. And that's over in Tijuana, Mexico. And it's between the old bad boy Luis Neri, 35 wins, 27 KOs, 2 defeats, to Brandon Figueroa. And his last fight was against Naoya Inoue, where he floored Inoue in the first round. Then got up and was promptly flattened, but as most people are against Inoue. But he's taking on another Japanese fighter, KYONOSUKE Kameda, who is 15 wins, 3 defeats, 2 draws, 26 years of age, Kameda. His 3 defeats, one is by stoppage. He got stopped in his debut in 2 rounds in a 4-rounder, and then he lost a 4-rounder later on, and I think the other defeat is an 8-rounder, but he's been on a bit of a streak, putting together some good wins against, I mean, all of this takes place in Japan. There's an 8-round draw in there. He's not faced killers by any stretch of the imagination. He's got 9 KOs out of the 15 wins, but this is definitely a step up for him to fight Neri. And there was a little bit of naughtiness at the weigh-in, but not the weigh-in, excuse me, at the press conference, the head-to-head, the face-to-face, because Kameda, with a white patterned bandana covering his face, he got in close with Neri and pressed his face right against his, and they did that whole thing. Now, Neri, he's not going to take that because he seems to delight in being the pantomime sort of bad boy. In his career, there's been some controversy, especially in Japan. He's very, very well known to the Japanese because he had 2 fights with Shinsuke Kamanaka. The first one, he stopped Kamanaka in 4 rounds, and this was for the WBC bantamweight title. And then 2 fights later, he went back over to Japan. Both these fights were in Japan for a rematch, and stopped him again in 2 rounds. But he failed the weight second time round, and that's considered a cardinal sin in Japan. And it's considered a bad thing anywhere, but in Japan it was kind of like, well, you've beaten our guy, and then you come back here for another paycheck in a rematch. You can't even be asked to make the weight. The Japanese were not happy with him, so he plays that panto villain very, very well. But look, he does have some good wins on his record. He's beaten Juan Carlos Payano in 9 rounds, Joe Arroyo in 4 rounds. You can argue that these guys were a little bit past their best. Well, actually, no, not really, because we're going back about 5 or 6 years. So no, they weren't past their best. No, I would refute that argument. But then, of course, he strung together some wins. Terrific win against Azat Hovhannissian. That was a great fight. He stopped him in 11 rounds. And if I remember rightly, that was kind of looked like, was it a premature? No, it wasn't a premature stoppage, but it was one of those fights where Hovhannissian was in it, really in it, and giving Neri all he could handle. It's a great fight. Yeah, and he beat Carlos Castro, who at the time was 27 wins, no defeats, no draws. That was a split decision 10-rounder, and he had Castro on the floor. And then so he earned his fight with Inoue, which is obviously a big fat paycheck for anyone. Went over there in May of last year. This was for the undisputed super bantamweight titles, and he put Inoue on the floor. And that was the first time Inoue had been on the floor. That was at the Tokyo Dome, massive event. Inoue, of course, got up, knocked knocked Neri down, and then ended up flattening him in the sixth round. I mean, it was a no way. It was really had his bit between the teeth in that fight. And I can't overlook the fact that I can't pretend that it wasn't because of Neri's complete lack of respect for anyone. You know, the Japanese are, you know, they like to present themselves for the most part as being a very, very respectful nation. That's why when you go to Japanese boxing events, you know, they sit and they applaud politely and they respect the opposition, and you know, you very rarely get fighters trash talking. Some of them are, you know, in the last generation or two, there have been a few sort of flashy ones, not so much Inoue, but there's been a couple of fighters who have been a little bit more outspoken and flashy. But generally speaking, traditionally, Japanese fighters have been, they sort of take their cue from that sort of samurai code as far as behavior goes, where you're not to be messed with, but at the same time, you don't go throwing your weight around or talking. Talking is considered to be, you know, cheap, as they say. Actions count. So even though I think this is a jump up for KYONOSUKE Kameda, I do feel that there's some spice to this fight. And yes, it's in Mexico, so it's Kameda who's doing the traveling this time and not Neri. But don't overlook this fight. I think this could be a really good fight, a really fun fight, you know, with a lot of you know, kill or be killed mentality there. I think Neri has to start as the favourite, even though he's coming off that defeat to Inoue. You know, KYONOSUKE Kameda isn't exactly the best Japanese fighter out there, but he's still young. He's 26. He's got ambition. He's got motivation, definitely. And the Japanese are not fond of Mr. Neri, so this could be a right old barn burner. So bear that in mind. Don't overlook this fight. Yeah, don't overlook the fight. I mean, God knows there's enough to enjoy on that Riyadh card, but maybe stick this one in your back pocket for as a sort of sleeper. You know, not one that sends you to sleep, but a sleeper in the sense that people are going to overlook it. So I just thought I'd mention that fight because it is worth noting. And what do you think of Neri? Leave your comments below. What do you think of Lewis Neri? Because he has beaten good men, but when you put it on him, he's beatable. He's beatable. And if you've ever seen Kameda fight, let me know your opinion on him. Who do you think's going to win? Yeah, comments below as usual. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you don't mind, it takes a second, cost you nothing. Hit the like button, support the channel, all that good stuff. Share the video. You know, spread the love. Spread the love. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, as always, and bye for now.